the network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AVWeek, episode 132, recorded Saturday, March 1st, 2014, live at the BLC.
Ready.
AVWeek.
Performing scan.
Week.
Online.
This is AVWeek. AVWeek. This is AVWeek, your weekly wrap-up of audio-visual news and information. My name is Tim Albright. I'm your host. We are live here at the BLC, the 16th annual BLC in beautiful downtown Dallas. I don't know if it's downtown Dallas or not. At the Four Seasons, with me right now is Frank West, Regional Manager for BIAP. Hello, sir.
Morning.
Also with us is Eric Snyder. Eric is the VP of Engineering at Conference Technologies Incorporated. Good morning, sir.
Thank you very much.
And also with us is Craig McCormick, Editor-at-Large at Commercial Integrator. Good morning.
How's it going?
It's morning. It's early. How are you? The reason, the whole point of this whole podcast is the past couple days, all of us here and a couple thousand of our closest friends have kind of gathered together. And instead of technology like we would at Infocom, this has been more about business and how businesses ran in the AV industry. Frank, really quickly, we're going to start with you because BIAP is one of the sponsors of this event. Why sponsor this event? Why is it important to sponsor?
Well, I don't think our industry is that different than every other industry, but we do feel that most of, and ourselves included, we spend so much time being reactive and not enough time being proactive. So to take a few days away from, your day-to-day and focus on, long-term business trends, whether it be economic or new philosophies or just sharing new ideas, is just a great opportunity. You just have to make sure that you can, force yourself away from your day-to-day work. So that's the hard part.
Yeah, that's been one interesting thing. Is that every break, everybody goes out to the lobby to check email and return voicemails.
Yeah, and you fight to not play with your phone all day.
Well, yes, some of us do. Some of us succumb to that very easily. Eric, you had a very large engineering core over at CTI in St. Louis. When you come here, when you come to the NSCA BLC, what do you hope to take away from it?
I'd like to take away that 30,000 foot view that you don't see in the day-to-day when you're up close to it, right? So, we, like Frank was saying here, you get very reactive, right? So this is a time to step away and kind of seeing, well, is there a trend there that was maybe causing this? And then kind of get that longer term, so you can kind of reapproach the items when you bring them back, is that calmness, right? Calmness, quiet down. You're not the only person dealing with this right now.
Is that what you found is not only are you able to help other people that are experiencing things that you've already been through, but somebody maybe has already gone through something that you guys might be experiencing now?
Absolutely, right. So the trends are, you start kind of saying, in not specific, but in general, how have you guys approached this, right? And what lessons can you learn? I'm more interested in listening to other people's failures. I think you learn a lot more from that, right? So, you tried that didn't work. Well, why? And if they're willing to talk about it, that's just a mountain of wealth.
And that's one thing that's been interesting is somebody mentioned, opening the kimono. I think it was the Thursday night session. And that has been very revealing because, no pun intended, because everybody here has been very open, right? I mean, this is not, competitor versus competitor. We're all kind of in the industry together, and we all kind of serve our own niches, and we're all able to help each other. So, Craig, you are here as the media partner for NSCA. What do you guys hope to take away from this?
Obviously, we're here to cover all the sessions and report back to those who weren't able to make it. But one thing that I think has been really interesting is I've seen a lot of people with figurative light bulbs over their heads, coming up with or hearing about new ideas that maybe they haven't tried or haven't worked for them. Just new things that maybe hopefully for their businesses they can take back and give a try in their companies. And it's interesting where Eric was talking about, hearing about failures. That's one thing when we're covering stories that we try to get people to talk about, and they're so hesitant because they don't want it to look like they did anything wrong ever. But it is important to hear about that because, most of the time when we're talking to them, they overcame the failures, and it's important to hear how they did that so somebody else can learn about that as well. So I think it's been nice to hear about some of those here.
Okay. One thing that the very first session on Friday morning was about the economy, right? And that was not something you expect with a group of technology geeks, right? Whether it's the GM or the head of engineering, that's not something you normally talk about. So let's talk about that for a second. Besides the fact that one of the main points was the fact that they're missing drivers. The economy is missing drivers. The construction industry is not quite picked up. Where do you guys see the industry? The economy picture besides, where do you see our industry from a financial standpoint going in the next 5 or 6 years? Right.
Well, it's actually been very strong, and I think we're somewhat lucky in the AV industry in that certain things that people would gauge the economy, things like travel or even construction, sometimes that can benefit us. Obviously, video conferencing helps eliminate a lot of travel costs for corporations, so they can generate some true ROI measures by making investments in AV systems or video conferencing. We also see a lot of times that when construction's down, that means you have to kind of live with the space you have. So, renovations or local expansion without actually building brick and mortar starts to occur, and people have to update the systems that they have to get by till the next thing. So. There's always opportunity for us. It's just finding the niche, I guess, and trying to ride it and figure out what you're going to do next.
Okay. Eric, being as an integrator yourself, what do you guys see the industry in the next couple of years?
The industry, that's a very good question. There's a lot of off-the-shelf technologies that are starting to get weeded down into everyday business life, right? So. What we're seeing is the adoption of the millennials coming in is like, whiteboards are not nearly as important to them anymore. They want to go and maybe use the smart technology or bring your own device, or, the big question is, hey, how come I can't just use this room like Skype? I do it every day, right? So I think that makes it for this industry a little bit valuable, right? Because if the IT guys in the current departments could already do that, they'd be doing it. So they're actually kind of coming back into us going, hey, look, we tried that, but we weren't successful. Can you give some tips on how to actually implement this, right? And I think the integrators that can latch onto that and not fight that and look at some adoption and how to tweak that adoption so it's usable will be very successful.
Is that more of a cult? I mean, does that take a culture shift, though?
Yeah, it absolutely does, right? I come from our traditional AV engineers can be very arrogant, right?
And they tend to stay with the same thing.
Predictability, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So I have that talk with my guys sometimes. How can we make the consumer off-the-shelf technology more predictable, right? So it's like just moving it one shade over, seeing, well, you know what? If we had this little thing here, that makes that more predictable and gets into that realm, right? So. The big quote that I have is "Be brave, but not stupid."
Okay, I like that. I like that. Craig, you guys actually, obviously have talked with a lot of integrators over the last 6 months or so. Where do you guys see the economy as far as AV?
If it feels anecdotally like a lot of projects, the bigger projects that maybe were delayed for a while because of the economy, or put on the back burner for a while, are starting to come forward. So that's obviously a good sign. We're hearing more about bigger things that maybe a school or a hospital or something couldn't afford to do right now are starting to move forward and get going. So obviously there's a little more money flowing, it seems like.
Are these the mythical shovel-ready projects that we're talking about?
There's some of those, yeah.
Okay. Eric, we'll kick this off with you. Where do you see either the greatest areas of growth for our industry, or maybe where are areas that we are shrinking back?
The there was a very good discussion that happened maybe a little bit earlier this year. Is that I think software and some soft solutions. There's enormous amount of growth for that, right? And our industry typically in the past, I think a couple of gentlemen were really correct in stating that we're not very good at selling software and soft package solutions, right? I think our biggest area for growth is taking that and applying that and getting at software solutions and getting it standardized. A very good discussion yesterday, for example, right? The CEO, man, I want, not everything has to be custom, but you know what? There's more than just one non-custom solution out there, right? So if it's a software package, it's this, it's that. It's finding that right niche fit that includes a lot of that software to keep that consistent, non-custom, talk to the CIO in that terms, and you're going to get a lot farther because we want to walk into this room and be predictable. I think predictable is a better term there.
Yeah. When it comes to that, though, you're talking about hiring. Your hiring practices have to change because who you're looking for then is different than it was 4 or 5 years ago. 4 or 5 years ago, if you wanted a programmer, quote unquote, you're looking for someone who understands basic logic and could latch on to C++ and then apply that to either AMX or Extronic, Crestron, or Aurora, whoever. You're talking about something totally different.
Absolutely. We have this discussion too. So, are you an installer or a technician? That's a very good point there, right? So back in the old days, you had 10 B and C connections here, 10 B and C, or 5 B and C connections here, 5 B and C. It was 10 connections you made, and you go in the room, and it took maybe a half hour, let's say, to go do it. Do those connections, plugged everything in, do a slight bit of tweak, and walk out in that half hour, right? Well, now I'm going in, and please don't beat me up, but as like a Cat 5, that's 10, 15 minutes worth of connections, and then the other 15 minutes, 20 minutes now is configuration, right?
Yeah.
Right? It's the black box, right? So if you want to be valuable, this is kind of when I talk to my guys, is that, man, installation is a beautiful skill. I highly value it. But now your need or your lowest constraint, as we talked about yesterday, is now the guy who can set that up, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's exactly what you're going at, right? So we got to train for that and move forward with that in the industry.
Yeah. Craig, where do you guys see some of our greatest growth, or maybe some places where we're coming back?
Yeah, I think we talked some about that at the last panel yesterday. The big video conferencing, the big solutions those don't seem to be happening quite as much, but there are kind of a lot more of the huddle room type of things. I know how you feel about that particular term.
I don't like the term, but I understand the concept.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. I think you are seeing a lot more of those because they're obviously more affordable and give companies and clients a chance to have some new technology without spending an exorbitant amount of money, so they can kind of give it a try. So I think maybe you'll see it kind of go that way for a little while.
Yeah. Frank, as a manufacturer, where do you see us?
We're seeing a big shift from just focusing on room systems to more building-wide systems, and I think that kind of plays well into the discussion we're having about, there's this certain percentage of the industry that is really large, highly customized rooms, and then huddle, collaboration. I mean, we can debate what those terms mean. I don't know what they mean. We joke sometimes that, if you have X amount of people in a collaboration room and somebody comes in here, you better throw them out or else you'll have a huddle on your hands. But looking at the building from, from its needs, whether it's the cafeteria or the CEO's boardroom and everything in between, and using the network as our backbone to interconnect things, that can make us incredibly cost-effective in the grand scheme of things, and it enables us to make those smaller rooms better.
Yeah.
Those smaller rooms that might have got a dry erase board or maybe a 40-inch panel are now getting a ceiling microphone with audio conferencing capabilities, or obviously the emergence of soft codec. For us, we look at that as an opportunity. We call it internally a soft codec, but strong audio for a soft codec. So people want to do more with soft codecs and bring them into larger rooms, and they realize pretty quickly that the little speakerphone is not going to fulfill their needs. So We want to be able to interface with those devices and bring a professional audio system to those types of solutions.
I have a funny story about that. We had a client recently where they wanted to do just that, take the speakerphone and hang it on the ceiling. Let's just say once the HVAC went on, it was not pretty.
Did they dial with a broomstick?
They dialed it and hung it up there, and anyhow, it was an interesting, yeah. All right, guys. Real quick, as we wrap this up, Craig, what? I guess I should ask this way: why is the BLC important? Why take away time from your business for 2 or 3 days?
I think, this is my first time here, first time covering it. What I've noticed is there's a lot of people that maybe would never see each other, would maybe never pick up the phone, would never email, whatever, who are talking to each other and learning things, that maybe they wouldn't learn otherwise. And like I said, I've seen a lot of light bulbs going off on people's heads. So that's obviously going to be good for their business if they bring it back and have a new idea, something that they never thought of and their boss never thought of and their employees never thought of it. New way of thinking, maybe a new opportunity, and I'm sure we'll see some partnerships and projects that come out of this. I'm sure people have been talking about things that they need a partner or somebody to help them out with that'll develop in the next year or so.
Okay. Eric, why come to the BLC?
I love it because of the trends, right? We could all geek out and talk about technology all day long, but what's the reason behind this trend, right? What are we seeing smaller rooms, right? Is it because of the architects or the financials that are coming out, right? This really helps you prepare for the right technology discussions instead of just the individual piece of gear, right? So this is a solution that needs to be fixed for this area, and that solution then is worth a certain amount of money.
Yeah.
I think these conferences kind of go into that discussion really well.
Okay. Frank, why not only why sponsor, but just why come? Why attend?
This is my first one, and I have to say I'm not planning on missing one of these again. The quality of the breakout sessions is really, really impressive. And I think the fact that the people they're bringing in are people that are from outside of our industry and have more of a big box mentality or more of a, not industry specific focus, I guess, is, something you can really glean from. I think that we in our space, we tend to talk to people that are just like us all the time. Yeah. So it's kind of refreshing to get some perspective from, a PhD, MBA economist, or a writer of business books, or somebody who's really focused on just teaching people about selling. Yeah. We in our industry are too closed. We're too small. So this is a refreshing opportunity. And then also just the time away that you get with other people in the industry really enables you to build some relationships that you don't build over a 30, 45 minute sit-down meeting when you're breezing through their town.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. Eric Snyder, Vice President of Engineering for Conference Technologies. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Frank West, Regional Manager for BIAMP. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And Editor-at-Large for Commercial Integrator, Craig McCormick. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And now we are joined by my favorite Canadian. No, all apologies to Matt Scott. Brock McGinnis from Westbury National. How are you, sir?
Morning, Tim. I feel fantastic. It's a great day at the NSCA BLC.
It is. You've been tweeting since like 5 o'clock this morning. So
middle age.
Yeah. And Matt Chitwood. Matt is the president of DNL from Phoenix, Arizona. Welcome, sir.
Oh, glad to be here.
And also Craig McCormick is still with us. All right, guys, here's the deal. The last couple days we have been all gathered around, and instead of talking about technology, we've been talking about business, right? The business of our business, the business of AV. So kind of the idea behind this podcast is just to talk about that. What have we learned the last couple days? What have we garnered from our peers in the industry? And then why is the BLC important besides those facts? So Brock, we'll start with you. One of the economists, the economist that kicked off the sessions on Friday, talked about the fact that we're still not kind of there yet. He talked about the U.S. economy and made a joke about the fact that Canadians are unarmed Americans with better health care. But you guys, I mean, let's be honest here. A lot of times the Canadian economy and the U.S. economy kind of holds hands. When it comes to our economies, Where are we? I mean, for as far as AV, are we still in a recession? Are we recovering? Are we recovering faster?
Canadian economy has actually been quite different from the U.S. and since the 2008 recession.
Okay.
We have not experienced the same level of downturns. We did not have banks that failed. Our government injected a lot of stimulus money, not into corporations to bail them out, but injected it into healthcare and higher education.
Okay.
And AV was a great benefactor of those two things. The commercial economy, it flatlined. It didn't go down, but it flatlined. And so I think that the better integrators and the better manufacturers continued to do well and grew their market share within that time, and had to work a little bit harder for it. This is the first year that we've experienced. We had clients desperate to spend money before the end of the calendar year. We haven't seen that since 2007.
Really?
Where we were picking up contracts, and not unsubstantial contracts. Corporations cleaning out budgets, doing rooms that they've been putting off for 5 years, 5-wire rooms, upgrading 5-wire rooms, putting in real conferencing systems and real automation systems. But the goods had to be substantially delivered by December 31st, and the invoicing had to be done, and it made our last quarter spectacular. Financially, it was awesome. Operationally, what a nightmare. Our people had to work their tails off.
Yeah.
Coming into 2013 or 2014 rather, we think this is going to be a real good year in business. We've got a good solid backlog, and all of that government stimulus money in our economy has gone away. So it is back to relationships and design build, and the people that the companies like Westbury that have real good momentum in the marketplace that are going to benefit from that. And those that just survived on government generated and funded tender work, they're not going to have such a happy year, but we'd be happy to absorb them.
You heard that. If you're having trouble in anywhere in Eastern Canada, just call Brock. He'll buy you. Or Western Canada. I don't want to make you regional. You could be nationwide. Go buy somebody in Vancouver.
I'm glad there's no video. You're putting me on the spot. No, not Vancouver, Calgary. We'd love to be in Calgary.
There we go. Matt, as far as you guys' business, and where do you see the AV industry economy-wise?
Well, from our standpoint, I think one of the things I see going into this year is that if you're still around, it's sort of the cream rising to the top type of thing. There's everyone's here to play, and we used to have a lot of problems with sort of that unknown competitor that just sort of eating away at some of our business, and some of that's gone away. Some of that will always be there. But I think that we're really positive. Now our business is entirely reliant on the healthcare market. So what I think Dr. McPeter said yesterday about the strength of the healthcare market is very, very true. There's still a whole lot of uncertainty. There's still a whole lot of trepidation around where the dollars are going to be spent. So although we feel really, really positive about the market, we're still being quite careful.
Well, the fact that you guys depend so much on healthcare, did you see a downturn, or was it like Brock said, was it more flatlined?
Yeah, it was more flatlined, I think. There was a I wouldn't say a real pattern to it, but because our share of healthcare is spread across all kinds of different facilities, from large acute care facilities to small oncology and dialysis clinics. I feel like that protected us a little bit to some of that to some of that withdrawal of capital that really affected the large acute care projects.
Okay. Craig, Matt mentioned if you're still around, it was it wasn't necessarily you're one of the survivors. What's one of the things that you guys have noticed being commercial integrator and interviewing all these integrators who are still around? What's maybe one or two common denominators that they had going for them that allowed them to weather this recession and then now maybe hopefully reap the benefits of still being here?
I think in general, diversification is a big help. Obviously Matt's company has been successful, working almost exclusively, like you said, in one market. But I think if you're able to kind of adjust to the conditions that are existing and not necessarily rely on one market to be successful, if one market starts to go down, you can ramp up your work in another market. I think that helps. I think what we saw for a couple of years is a lot of companies that had never done any government projects trying to get government projects and not knowing the right people, not knowing how to get into it. And I do think we're going to start to see the same thing in healthcare, where everybody's talking about there's a lot of healthcare opportunities, there's a lot of money to be spent. I think obviously companies like Matt's will continue to be successful because they've been in that market for a while and kind of know their way around, know the people to talk to, know the terminology, that sort of thing. I think that's kind of.
Matt, do you have any concerns, excuse me, in healthcare about really big players coming into the market?
I do.
We've looked at that as being the threat that you can't control, that just these mammoth companies buy somebody. AVWeek was bought by one of those companies, I believe, that is active in the healthcare market. And how do you see that as being disruptive?
Yeah, that's a great point. That's as I look at as I've watched our little market, our little niche sort of develop over the years. That's definitely been a fear of mine. But I think that there's I think because what we do affects the patient experience so much and there's no doubt that that's really first and foremost on everybody's mind now in healthcare. I think that we can. I think that it's gonna come down to developing some relationships with some of those larger players, at least initially. But I think also at the same time we're gonna have to look at really redefining ourselves to make sure that whether that maybe means looking at other verticals, then that may be the situation.
Yeah, you can never trust what a purchasing department is going to do.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
Oh, let's just bundle that in.
Sure. Yeah, there's two. I hate to. There was a lot of dollars wasted. I think somebody mentioned that yesterday in that one of those last sessions. There's a lot of dollars wasted when people are buying equipment that they have no business really entertaining, and you hate to see that happen. But there's probably some of that that's going to happen before they realize the mistakes that are being made.
Yeah, Craig mentioned the fact that during the downturn there were some that were trying to get into other verticals, like Matt mentioned. One of the things that I think is neat about this conference is you have people who are healthcare specific, like Matt and DNL, and then you have folks like me, which are more education focused in our company. How do you go about asking for help, Brock, if you are a smaller player or if you have one specific vertical? How do you go about asking help from people who are already in that space without threatening them? So if I went to Matt and said, Matt, I've got a small office in Arizona and I'd like to know how to do healthcare. First of all, how do I ask that without being insulting to him, and how does he respond without saying, you know what, screw you, dude. I don't want you here.
I actually think that's exactly what would happen. Okay. So the common source are our vendors.
Okay.
The vendors are a source, and the consulting community are a source.
Okay.
And the consulting community has been real helpful to us in bringing us into some narrow verticals that we've never been into before, med simulation for learning being one of those. We really didn't know anything about that business, but the consultants knew that we were a really good integrator who could take, even though it's technology that we'd never actually worked with before, that our programming people, our field engineering people, our planning processes and the way that we execute a job, that we could successfully carry out a type of project that we had never carried out before.
Yeah.
And once you've done it, you're in the market. You're in the game.
Yeah.
And you know, that's been our approach, and you know, in that specific case, the vendor, which was Beeline. Do you work with a company called Beeline?
I don't know.
The vendor was invested a lot of time in us, and gave us, you know, knowledge and practical planning things that we could never have figured out ourselves. So it is a partnership, and the manufacturers are a big part of what we do.
Yeah.
And what we have in common. So that would be my suggestion. When we start looking at other geographical locations or other markets, we talk to the people who are supplying those. It's also a great way to understand the health of the marketplace. You know, are those people's volumes within that vertical or within that market going up? Are they going down? Are they paying their bills?
Yeah.
You know, are you having to do a lot of direct to client service because the integrator bites at that particular, you know, aspect of aftercare?
That makes sense. Matt, if you were to, let's say that you wanted to get into a different vertical, how do you think that you would approach that? Would you do like Brock said? Would you go to the vendors and say, hey, or the consultants and say, you know, hey, we're looking at doing something different here?
Yeah, I think I'd have to. I depending on the market, probably look at finding some people that really understand that market really well. That would be. But aside from that, I don't know. I mean, I feel that if someone approached me about entering this space, if I had concern, fear that they're going to enter and take then I wouldn't feel like I had enough confidence in my business and what I'm doing and what our competencies are, to really stand firm in our ground, because it takes a while to ramp up and really understand a market and really understand what what an integrator's doing
and create the relationships. Because the traction always comes from the relationships.
Yeah.
Yep. That doesn't happen overnight. And I know I've been in that situation. I've had some of those conversations here, and you just have to be very, very upfront in your approach.
Yeah.
And I think if you lend a little humbleness into the conversation, and we've all learned step one at some point. So I think you have to just take. It is what it is.
Yeah. All right, guys. Let's take our magic hats that we've learned. Where do we see the industry going in maybe the next 5 or 6 years? Are we on? Are we on a recovery here? Are we on an upswing? Or are we still battling stuff? Mr. McCormick, I know you've answered this once, but go ahead and give these guys your answer.
Yeah, like I said before, I think it definitely seems to be turning around and picking up steam, and I do hear a lot about healthcare being one market where it's really going to be the focus for a lot of companies for a while. So.
All right, Matt, where do you see us?
Yeah,
going?
I feel very
obviously
very
you're
confident.
in healthcare, so.
Sure. Yeah, I do. I feel very confident. I mean, that's what Dr. McPeter said yesterday about the population changes. I mean, that's obvious. The way that technology is used to affect the patient experience and deliver healthcare, I think, is going to continue to evolve, and that's exciting. I think it's I think from our standpoint, we're in the right spot. But I think some of this technology is appropriate in other verticals. I feel very, very confident about the state of the industry because of that.
Mr. McInnes, where do you see either the Canadian or the U.S.? It's a fabulous time to be in the AV industry anywhere in the world. Now more than any other time in the decades that I've been in this industry, people need the technology that we provide to do their jobs. They can't have a meeting without a screen.
Yeah.
They don't have the time or the money to fly halfway across the country. The business process has moved from the paper to the digital realm, and we enable the digital realm. That's what we do. The types of things that they're trying to collaborate about or communicate with each other, they have to have AV technology to do that. And this, it continues to evolve. Companies like SVSI and Just Add Power. I love that I now don't even have to use an AV industry switch or distribution network.
Yeah.
I can go straight over IP. I can use a QSYS or a Tessera or a Dante-enabled product, and I can just run that over a network line that could be a different network line or could be the same network line, but the AV-IT convergence, there's nothing negative about that component of it. What Danko from Dimension was saying yesterday is to me a negative about dumbing down presentation technologies so that IT companies like his can install them without qualified personnel to do so.
Yeah.
The user experience is going up. People have it at home. You can push Angry Birds from your phone to your TV like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they want that simplicity of use in the workplace, and they can't achieve it without people like us. And it is it's a tremendous business opportunity to, if we think not about the equipment, but if we think about what the equipment does and how it can be best used within the business process. For the user who's not trained, for the meeting that has to happen within 30 minutes or 40 minutes, but yet 4 people have to connect their computers and make presentations on a screen at the same time. How do we make it easy for somebody to do that? Well, easy costs money, and it requires experts, and that's who we are. And so there has just to me never been as good a time to be in the AV industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd completely agree with that. All right, guys, 2 more questions, and I'll let you get out of here and get breakfast this morning. Matt, what technologies are you excited about? I know this is a business conference, but let's talk a little geek stuff for a second. Let's get some equipment out there. What technologies are you looking forward to? Maybe either that's already been announced, or maybe that you either know about or maybe want to have developed.
Sure. Yeah. So in my world, for years and years, that patient television in the corner of that hospital room was just that. It was just a patient television. Now, of course, we have the ability to push all kinds of content and experiences to that screen, and that opens up an unbelievable opportunity to affect the way that healthcare is administered. Now, for years, there's been systems that are out there that are PC driven, very very heavy in terms of infrastructure. But now there's technology available. If you sort of take the capabilities of a smart TV, so to speak, and build that for the healthcare patient experience. Now the prices drop such that it's not just the large 400, 500, 600 bed acute care hospitals that can afford the technology, but it's the 5 or 10 bed rural hospital, or it's the small dialysis facility or oncology facility. So now you're really using the technology to make an impact. In long-term care, or places where people get into a hospital bed, and that might be the last place that they ever live, and they can open up a screen and have a communication with somebody across the world, and say I love you, and there's no time to get on a plane and have that conversation or have that last hug. Now all of a sudden you're really doing some really cool things with the technology that's a little bit more effective than just watching NBC or CBS or ESPN for that matter. So,
and what a slogan! The last AV company you'll ever need.
Oh, jeez. I was getting all teary-eyed, and then Brock. Good Lord.
That was a good point, though. No, it's an excellent point.
So yeah, it's those kinds of things. I mean, that's that TV is just a portal, just a display to do all kinds of things. And we know, I mean, we walk around with enough technology in our pockets. We can do that just from our seats today. It's a little different when you're in that kind of environment. But that's where I see it really. I mean, that's what I'm excited about. And now, the cost of the technology and the simplicity of doing the integration is such that it's not just scalable only to those large facilities, but also to the smaller ones as well.
Right. Mr. McGinnis, what technologies are you excited about?
The hot buttons for us this year are wireless connectivity for sure.
Okay.
Brio, ClickShare, Enzo. I suppose I'd better also mention Air Media.
Oh, that's between you and your Crestron dealer. Oh, your Crestron rep.
But so that's a big enabler for clients, and it's a real quick and dirty solution to the people that have VGA twisted pair or 5-wire solutions that they need to be replacing quickly because they have digital laptops now, and EDID is not hooking up, and things aren't working easily. AV over IP, as I'd mentioned, the SVSI and Just Add Power, and I have to think that AMX and Crestron and Extron are all going to be in that business. Those are things that allow us to do our work easier. Our touch panels have gotten better and cheaper and easier for the clients and to be able to use, more approachable. But those are for us. Those are kind of the key things.
Yeah, Mr. McCormick, what are you guys seeing as far as technology-wise?
Is it too late to ride the 3D wave?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
that boat has sailed and sunk.
Well, I think interactivity and Brock mentioned touch panels. I think that's becoming a big thing for people to kind of be able to customize their own experience and find the things that are particular to them and that they want. I think that's becoming more and more important.
And Steve that's on next can probably speak to this better, but the drag and drop programming that is way more intuitive to the client. Instead of selecting table AV input 1, you just drag your preview video into the screen that you want it to go on, and the client doesn't have to learn anything. They already know how to do this. You just have to put drag and an arrow, and over it goes. We've had tremendous success with that, and that's because we all learned how to use an iPad. This is, it's all very intuitive now, and reducing the amount of time it takes a new user to fully be able to enjoy the capabilities of the system or leverage the capabilities of the system in their business process is it's kind of the number one objective. It's not what our systems are, it's what they do.
Exactly. All right, guys, before I let you go, Brock, we'll stick it with you. Why come to the BLC? What do you, every year when you come here, what do you hope to gain, and what do you end up taking away from it?
Everything I know, I've learned from somebody else.
Okay.
And the people that are here, the environment here versus some other industry events is completely different. It's a sharing thing. There are people here who have made mistakes I haven't had the good fortune to make yet, and they share those with me and how they dealt with them. People who've solved problems that are driving us crazy, and they share that information, and it's long been that way. This is as close as we come to a cooperative within our industry. I'm sitting at tables and talking very specific business with people I compete with every day, and it has allowed us, certainly within the Toronto market, to have a scenario where the customer doesn't always win just because the AV integrators hate each other and want to, cut each other's prices off at the knees. We have a lot of respect for each other's abilities, each other's businesses, the design build business that they do, and the investment that comes in. And so when a customer is shopping around somebody else's design, we're happy to put a price in for them and support the work that they've done. And that attitude started really here in the more than a decade I've been coming to the BLC. we are all assisting each other's success here. And of course, the caliber of the presenters is just off the charts.
Yeah.
We got Daniel Pink this morning.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty much as good as it gets.
Yeah.
And the two that we had yesterday, Adrian Gossick and Dr. Lisa
Lang.
Both amazing. Dr. McFeeters and I were, on the same shuttle for the hotel. I think from the hotel, I think I've listened to him half a dozen times over the years. Brilliant. My economics 101 course was never like that.
No way.
Really good communicator.
Yeah, he is. Matt, what do you hope to take away from it?
Yeah, it's always unbelievable. This is my third year, and I agree that the caliber of content is unbelievable. So that presents a dilemma, because you could go back home and have all kinds of ideas, but you really have to be diligent about really just taking away a couple of things that you're gonna do, or you're gonna change. And I still go back every few weeks back to Cameron Harold's book.
Yes.
He was here 2 years ago at this location, and that impacted me. That was my first BLC. Yeah. On the flip side, it's also a kind of a time of sanity check. You realize you come out of the trenches a little bit, and you realize that there's a lot of other people dealing with the same issues that you're dealing with, and sometimes that's tough when it's down and dirty. And but coming here, you realize there's people either in the same issues from a technology standpoint, vendor issues, that sort of thing, or people just with business challenges. So it's just good to get a little bit of misery loves company type thing.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. Well, guys, thank you so much. Matt Chitwood, he is the president of DNL from Phoenix, Arizona, and Mr. Westbury, Brock McGinnis, thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.
All right, guys.
Glad to be here.
And we will end up the day with my favorite control programmer. His name is Steve Greenblatt. He's the chief everything at Control Concepts. How are you, brother?
I'm doing great. It's great spending time with you over the past couple of days.
It has been very fun. This is one of those things that, whether it's this or Infocom or CES or CEDIA, coming to these events, physically coming to them, you get to spend time with folks, right? Last night I got to have dinner with Craig and the guys from and gal Jess from Commercial Integrator. You and I have sat through some sessions together and breakfast and stuff, and so yeah, it's been very cool. And that's kind of been the theme, right? Is that's the whole point of this face-to-face interaction, is garnering from other people what they do in their business. So with that, why do you, as a private programmer, come to the BLC?
There's a few reasons. The obvious one would be to get business, but that's not really what my motivation is. I want to be present in the industry. So it's important to be able to be seen, see other people, hear what they're talking about, eavesdrop a little bit, get to understand and invest in the industry. I think that's really where it's at for us. So we want to be a real player. Our group of independent programmers and our industry, if Randy Klein calls it that, and I think that's really a true statement now. We've matured, and I think that the average age of a programming company is probably 5 years now, which I think is a great thing, and I think that we're here to stay. And I'd like to see more of my colleagues come to these type of things, because I think it's important. And unfortunately, until they break that ice and do it for the first time, they're really not going to see the benefit of it. But it's just great to be able to be seen and have the opportunity to meet people that you wouldn't meet before.
Yeah. How would you position yourself? Besides the obvious, that you're an independent programmer, right? So you don't necessarily sell or spec product. And so when you look at most of the folks here, this is what they do, right? They're the folks who actually install it and this, that, and the other. So how would you position yourself, either with a manufacturer or with these people, or with people like Craig who cover quote unquote commercial integrators? How would you position yourself?
We want to be considered a partner. Okay. So we want to be able to work with anybody who needs help, and I think that's really where it's at, and it's really nice to be able to have the agility to be able to do that. And we try to identify opportunities, and that's kind of, I guess, one of the rules of a small business is you try to find a solution to an opportunity. So we look for ways to be able to offer the skills and meet the needs that are out there, and I have to bring back to my team what everybody's talking about, and did I see a few indicators that are going to cause us to shift? Are we going to see a difference in demand? We want to try to follow our own course, but I think that we're always making adjustments.
Yeah. Craig, what's one or two things that you have maybe gathered from this various type of companies? Because Craig's not the only independent programmer here. He's not the only one who's not a hardware slinger.
We were talking earlier with when Brock and Matt were on about getting into new markets and how you do that, and how you kind of build those relationships, and I think it some of it starts at events like this. I think you'll have an initial conversation and say, I'd really like to get into healthcare. I'd really like to get into government, whatever the case may be, but I don't know how to do it, and I can't quite get my foot in the door. I think that's what events like this are good for. You kind of break down the walls a little bit, and you don't worry about so much picking up the phone and kind of having the courage or whatever the word is to talk to your competitor or talk to a company that's much bigger than yours that obviously has years of experience on you in a particular market. You're all equals here. I think everybody just has an opportunity to find something that they can work together on, and like I said earlier in the broadcast, I think you will see some projects that come based on partnerships that were formed at this event this weekend.
I think that's an important point that we're all equals here. There's nobody comparing spreadsheets or anything like that here. We're all kind of sharing and this and the other. Steve, one of the things that we've asked over the course of the broadcast this morning, where do you see the economy as far as AV? I mean, you have a unique perspective.
Sure.
Because you're not having to deal with the actual hardware, but you are able. You are brought in as an independent programmer, and you also do modules and you do specialized programming for manufacturers for different people. Where do you see the AV economy?
From our perspective, first I have to say we're localized. So we are in the Northeast. We focus most of our business in the New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania area. So for me, I'm optimistic about it. Last year was a great year for us, and I'm proud to say we had a little bit of recovery in the previous 2 years. I think for us, I look at the development just in New York City alone as being a good opportunity for a number of years to come. I think that as they continue to rebuild Lower Manhattan, and unfortunately because of some storms and bad weather, we continue to have rebirth of those types of areas. So I think that anytime companies move into a new location, vacate a location, that starts a chain reaction for opportunities. We do have to think about the threats that are out there, but in general, I'm optimistic about it. I feel like that more people are looking to continue to evolve their technology, and there's only so long that they can hold off. And so I do have that unique perspective in the fact that I'm not looking at hardware sales and so forth. Anytime a system changes, they need to go back and potentially reprogram it, and anytime new equipment is out there, or whether it's now they want to move to a cheaper solution with putting in iPads versus touch panels, that still requires some programming changes. So it's a great place to be for us.
Yeah. Craig, one of the things The Economist talked about yesterday morning was the fact that places like New York and California and Texas, those types of construction areas, those are kind of driving those economies. What are you guys hearing across the board, across the country, as far as is New York and California and Texas indicative? Is it an indicator, or are they just hot spots of activity?
I think it's more that they're hot spots, but that's where it starts. I mean, those are obviously big markets, and there's a lot of work to be had in all three of those areas. I think it's probably going to take a little while longer for some of some of the smaller areas to pick up as well, and catch up to that. But New York, California, and Texas, they always lead the way in everything, don't they?
Except the World Series. All right. and
Great.
And apparently the Super Bowl. So, Steve, as far as technology or not just equipment, but let's just say technology in general in the AV industry. What are you either excited about, or what do you see coming down the pipeline that maybe somebody else doesn't see?
That's a good question. I mean, one thing that we're real excited about from a software standpoint is new tools, new capabilities, the ability to bring what we do to the next level.
Yeah.
So whether it's adding gestures, or whether it's now being able to, like Brock said earlier, do drag and drop on a touch panel.
Yeah.
That's stuff that people are growing up having those capabilities, and then they look to us and say, why are we spending all this money and you can't give us what we already have and what we're used to. Embracing some more of the common programming languages is important. Crestron's Simple Sharp that's something that we're looking into, and we feel is going to help us to be a differentiator and do some things that we just weren't able to do in the past. But it's I guess it's the innovation, and but I can't really pinpoint anything more specific.
Okay, no, that's good. As we kind of wrap up here, what's for both of you? What's one or two things that you are going to take away from this weekend at the BLC? Craig, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think I mentioned it a little bit earlier that everyone's an equal, and Brock mentioned earlier how he's been sharing pretty detailed company information, and I think there's a lot of that going on, that people kind of have their guard down and they're willing to share, they're willing to talk to others that might be competitors or maybe already are competitors, and tell them what's worked for them, what hasn't worked for them, and I think that's always best. Those are the type of stories that we like to write, that when people will talk about things that didn't work for them and how they were able to overcome that and move forward. I think that's when the industry learns the most and gets the most out of it. So,
Steve, what are you taking away from this weekend?
I am a big fan of culture, and I really was eating up the presentation yesterday about how to build a successful team, and for what we are is we're as good as the people on our team.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's just an important thing to be able to invest in your team, to be able to bring the right people on the team, and to also be able to recognize them and make sure that they're fulfilling their potential and being rewarded for it in whatever manner that is. I think just continuing to learn from others is important, and following up on what Craig said, a lesson that I've been taught is that you don't appreciate success until you have failure. So I think that's something that everybody should look into and be able to step back and look at themselves and say, what could I be doing better, and what's my neighbor doing, rather than trying to outdo them, try to learn from them.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. Steve Greenblatt from Control Concepts. Craig McCormick, as always, sir, the editor-at-large of Commercial Integrator. Thank you, sir.
Thank you again.
My name is Tim Albright. Thanks so much for listening.